All right. Happy Friday, everybody. The first week of 2024 is almost over. I want to go over a few things. One, how I entered this short up here. This was kind of a tough short to get into, depending on the strategy you were trying to use, but there was a good setup there, in my opinion. So I took a short there. And yeah, so far this is a winner. I'm still in this short, so I want to go over that. And I'll first just go over, general analysis for Bitcoin since my last video when we were all the way up here. So for a quick recap, my last video that I posted was about 3 days ago at this point, and I was basically saying that, hey, we were seeing bearish signs as we got this move up above this larger range. And basically the gist of that video was, I was looking at maybe this just being a, deviation above the range, considering that price got above it, started stalling out. We saw bearish divs, on the 4 hour, we saw very clear money flow divs, not momentum. But on the daily time frame, we were seeing some bearish divs with momentum and money flow actually, and the daily time frame's looking pretty strange right now. I'll go over that in a few minutes, but yeah, we were seeing bearish divs as we got to move up above the previous range, this large range that we were trading in since like December 5th, I think. Is that when we entered this range? Yeah. And so I was potentially expecting us to fall back into this range and, yeah, maybe get a rotation back to the downside. I have to say, I did not expect it to be this quick. This was a very wild dump. We got to move straight down to the low of the range, actually just front running the low of the range by a little bit. And unfortunately, I did not get a short up here. I was waiting on a setup, and I wasn't able to get it before this drop. And yeah, I mean, once we basically broke market structure back into this range, we immediately went down to the low. So was not able to get a short there. But I have now shorted this retrace up to the 786, also back testing this little range. So I did get a short eventually, and maybe it continues to play out. Maybe we actually do go lower. But now let's talk about, what I think is happening with this range. First off, there are a few bullish things that we can't ignore. We got a very large buying wick here after getting a move to the low of the range. That's not really a bearish thing. Doesn't mean that we're going to necessarily go higher. This could just be baiting people into going long yet again before we actually do continue lower. But there are some bullish divs on that wick low. Shout out Jason Casper. I actually didn't notice these 4 hour bull divs until he mentioned it on his YouTube. So yeah, we got some pretty bullish looking divergences here as we put in that wick low with money flow and momentum. And yeah, I mean, we have now gotten a move to the upside from that. Really, at this point, all I can say is that we are still ranging. And yeah, as long as we're continuing to range, I will continue to trade this range. I'll look for shorts at the highs and longs at the lows. And, in terms of a bias beyond that, I mean, I would say I'm still biased towards the downside. I think there's much more reason to go down than up. Maybe we do have to go up, though. I mean, there is key resistance in this area. Maybe price actually wants to top out at one of these key zones, like the golden pocket that we have up here, along with some other confluence. But in general, I think there is much more reason for us to go down as of right now. I think, price is very overextended to the upside, and a large retracement is due at some point. The question is this going to be the high before the retracement, or do we need to go higher first? And I don't have an answer for that. So all I can do right now is trade the price action that is presented to me. So I am, yeah, trading this range. I'm looking for longs and shorts and playing the range. And if we end up breaking the range at some point, then hopefully I'm in a trade in that direction. And right now, the only trade I'm in is short at the moment. I did not long this. I think that would be way too risky. I mean, unless you were able to somehow nail the bottom of this wick. But yeah, I wasn't. So I am not in a long, but I am hoping that price does make its way down towards the low end of the range and either breaks it or gives a long opportunity for me to then hedge myself. So that's kind of what I'm looking for next. And my main area of interest for this would really just be like this wick low. I'd like us to deviate this wick low with some kind of bullish confirmation. That would be my ideal trade setup, but I mean, we could also look at some other levels like the value area low, maybe pull this fixed range over. And I mean, we do have a bit of confluence with the value area lows down here. We have this smaller value area, which the value area lows kind of lining up with the larger ranges. And we can also pull a fib here. Let's see what that is looking like. Okay, so we got a bit of confluence there with the golden pocket as well. The 618 is actually right on the value area low. Maybe this would be an area that I'd be interested in longs. I would, have to see clear confirmations there, though. I'm not just going to long if we get a wick straight down to that area, especially if it's a very fast and very aggressive move like we saw over here. I would not be longing this. I would rather it be a very slow approach to that level. If the short gets stopped out, then I will probably be looking for another short from the high of this range if, confirmations are present. So that is pretty much it for the analysis. We kind of know the higher time frame context. We know what's below us. We know the resistance above us. I've mentioned that in my past videos, so if you don't, then hey, go check those out. But now let's talk about how I got into the short trade. So yesterday we got a pretty nice pump up to this area of resistance. We hit the 786 from that high to the low. We also back tested this range. We kind of rejected off the value area low. And if I go to a lower time frame, this was kind of a tough one to trade for a lot of people. I bet there weren't that many people that shorted this area. And if they did, they probably got a worse entry than me, even though my entry is not great. There was a way to get a really good entry here. Technically, a valid trade setup. You could have entered on this wick retrace and actually gotten like a really good entry, depending on where you entered. That's actually where I entered, but I was not prepared for this short, really. I wasn't expecting this good of a setup to be presented, so I wasn't ready for it, and I got a poor entry. But it was still good enough. I still locked in a pretty good profit here. And yeah, so now let's go over this trade. So we started off by getting this massive wick up to the 786. This was untradeable in my opinion, unless you somehow were able to snipe it from like here in validation above this wick high. But that was a really risky trade. I wasn't really willing to take that risk, considering how fast of a wick this was, and the fact that we didn't respect the 786 to the dollar. That's a little sketchy in my opinion, so I did not short that wick. But looking at market cipher, we did see some divergences as we got that move up there, and this is something that I actually mentioned in this post. I just kind of made a little journal entry to myself saying I shorted this retrace into the 786. We saw momentum bear divs on the 45-minute time frame and down. So we take a look at the 45-minute. We did see price making a higher high as momentum made a lower high. So this is where we started to see the divergences. As we go down in time frames, they become a bit more clear in terms of the momentum divs. And yeah, in the 15-minute, very clear bear div there. And I also said that we had some money flow divs on the 5-minute and down. So, money flow in this case was not looking very great. I mean, 15-minute money flow putting in a higher high. Actually, at the time, it was not. You could have said, like, we have a very slight money flow div here because this is actually where the wick, like the high was put in. But money flow went on to grow a bit more afterwards. So on the 5, we did see some money flow bear divs here. If I zoom in, you can see that we put in this high with the money flow, and from there, money flow came down as we put in a higher high in price action. If I put a horizontal line here, you can see that this is the highest one. From there, we put in lower highs, and price put in higher highs. So we were seeing money flow divs on the lower time frames. But even as I saw that, I was not going to, enter where we were at that point. I mean, we were down here basically actually where my entry was, but I didn't have anything else to go along with it. We just kind of saw a few bear divs as we put in that high, and yeah, let's just say this alone, even with the bear divs, was not enough for me to trust it, for me to want to take a risk on it, so I opted not to take that trade right then. But as we got this retracement, I started to notice something very interesting on Coinalyze.net. And for those of you who don't know what this is, it's a website. It's a free website. You can make a free account, and it has order flow indicators on it, like ExoCharts, similar, but it's the free version, so it's not going to be as detailed. But it's good enough and it can display bearish absorption. So I use it for basically that purpose. Also, I like to see if trades are getting stopped out, which is the open interest. If open interest goes down, that means trades are closing. So I use it for that reason as well. I have videos on my channel about this website if you want to learn more. And as I clicked over to this website while we were getting that retrace into the golden pocket here, I noticed that we did have some bearish absorption. This is another confirmation for a trade essentially, and this is a strategy that I've used for a while. I like using this strategy, especially when there's not many other options. Like when you have a crazy wick like this that you don't really think is tradable, you don't want to trade it. A lot of times I wait for a golden pocket retracement and I look to see if we're getting bearish absorption there. Essentially, this just means that more people were longing on this retrace than were actually longing on this wick, and those longs were being absorbed and were being used to fill up larger short orders by whales. And the way that we know that is because we saw the CVD put in a higher high, meaning people were opening up fresh longs specifically in this area as the open interest began to increase. So this is showing that new trades are opening. This is showing that those trades are long. And essentially what you look for is you look for as price makes a lower high into a key area like the golden pocket, you want to see CVD make a higher high with open interest making a higher high. If you measure from where this candle actually closed, like in terms of open interest, you could say that this candle closed down here and this candle closed right here. So there's even more of a discrepancy there. But either way, you can see clearly that open interest increased as these longs started coming in, and it appeared like they were being absorbed. And, this absorption gave me a bit more confidence to say that, okay, I don't think we're actually going to come up and take this high out. Back here when this just happened and we started dumping back down, I was thinking that, hey, maybe since we got above the 786, maybe we actually just keep pumping to the upside. But once I saw the absorption, I was a bit more confident in taking a short. So that is the reason why I opted to, wait until later, until we saw, extra confirmations. Even though I got basically the same entry, like I said, it was a pretty poor entry. I entered like down here, I think, but I had a bit more going in my favor than I would have if I entered over here. So that is how I entered short. It was a pretty sketchy one, I have to say. I was, thinking that I was probably going to get stopped out here, but we still put in a lower high. This high was respected. Seems like there were some large shorts, potentially with their, stop losses up above this high that did not want this high to be taken. So, yeah, basically I managed to hit TP1 and I locked in a profit with this trade already. So, yeah, fast forward, we got this, aggressive dump to the downside. I had a, TP somewhere in this area, like right around the point of control of the range. If I zoom out, I hit my TP1 somewhere around here. So I locked in my trade. I put my stop loss actually a little bit above my entry, because if I put it right at my entry, I would actually be stopped out right now. And I used some techniques to, determine where I felt my stop loss was safest. I decided to put it above this wick right here. And yeah, I mean, we wicked right up to that area, but we did not stop my trade out. So I am still short. Yet again, we got a wick right up towards my stop loss, and I'll actually show how close price got to my stop loss in a second. I'll take a screenshot of it, but either I'm getting really lucky with my stop loss placement, or I'm getting really good at it. One of the two. Okay, so here's a screenshot. This is, yeah, how close price came to my stop loss. It actually, wasn't as close as the last few times. The last few times we, basically touched this line. Didn't stop me out, though, but, yet again, I gotta say that's good stop loss placement on my part. And you can actually see if you look left over here, this is the candle I originally entered on, which is why that red arrow is there. And I actually entered a little long right down here. So, yeah, I did enter a long before this major dump to kind of hedge against my trade because, number one, I got a poor entry on it. And, it looked like price might want to curl back to the upside, maybe even, stop me out. So I figured, might as well take a little scalp and try and hedge against this trade, which was not, an ideal entry. So if I pull a fixed range and I actually pull it over to where price was at when I took that long, which was right here. we had gotten a move right down to the value area low. So yeah, I saw price, was kind of struggling at the point of control. We wicked it at first, and then we got a move below it, but bounced from the value area low. And we did see some bullish divergences on the 5 minute with momentum. I think we even saw some money flow divs. Let me see. This 3 minute, yeah, you could say there's a slight money flow div there, but a more clear momentum div on the 3 minute. And let's check the 1 minute. We might have had better money flow on the one. Yeah, so 1 minute money flow was actually looking really good at the time. We were seeing nice curvature. It was looking like, kind of nice reversal in terms of money flow. We also got a bullish div here, it appears. Yeah, very slight one though. So I decided to take a little scalp here. Basically, I just traded it once we reclaimed this low. It was a SFP on the 5 minute. So yeah, once we reclaimed that and closed a 5 minute candle, decided to take that trade. It was, definitely a lower probability trade. It was, a scalp trade. It was as scalpy as you can get, really. This is a low time frame range. And, there were a few decent confirmations for it, but, we also had some things going against it. The 5 minute money flow was coming down, and, we just saw all this the bearish confirmations over here. So there were some things going against my trade, but I took a little scalp, and my goal was to lock it in as soon as possible. So my first target was this local high. And I ended up taking profits a little bit before we got there because we got to move up to here and then started dumping back down. So I actually marketed out right here and yeah, locked in a profit with that one. I wasn't gonna, sit and risk with this trade because I was not very confident in it. I just wanted a little scalp as a hedge. So, yep, I locked that trade in and that got stopped out for a profit pretty soon after. And once that happened, well, my short TP was hit pretty soon afterwards. So at this point, I am now just kind of sitting in this short, maybe looking to add to it. I was maybe looking to add on this retrace, but there are some things that are making me not really want to add to it at this point. I mean, we just got this massive bullish wick. It was an SFP of this low, so that's an internal low, but still, it is something. And we can look through Market Cipher real quick, see how that's looking. I like the fact that the 15-minute money flow is now really coming out. Looks like maybe he wants to dip into the red. But the 30-minute is kind of holding its ground. It's still pretty thick in the green. 1 hour actually looks pretty good. We're seeing overall money flow coming out still, and we're just now printing kind of another trigger wave here. It's, kind of a funky one if you look at it. There's, horns on this momentum wave. That's a weird looking one, but we are, right now, momentum's coming down. We just printed this red dot. Money flow is locally coming down, and overall is putting in lower highs. 2 hours actually putting in higher highs, though, so a bit of a discrepancy there, but we also have a red dot. And 3 hours, pretty much the same thing. I mean, right now we're actually putting in a lower high, but it's, looking a bit funky, I have to say. But momentum, again, looks like it's kind of topping out here. Now, the 4 hour money flow is actually putting in a higher high right now. So, at least in terms of like these little local waves, we're putting in a higher high. But still, overall, money flow has come down significantly from this point. We've been putting in lower highs. But, maybe money flow has to come up a bit just to put in another lower high like this. So, maybe it breaking these local highs is a sign that this is going to happen. That's a possibility I got to consider. And finally, taking a look at the daily time frame. So, I mentioned there was something I wanted to look at with this daily time frame, and it is this momentum wave. What the heck is going on with this momentum wave? Have you ever seen anything that looks like that? Like, we got this, jagged horn here. That's not really too strange. We see that often. Not too often. Usually you see the curve, but, we got a horn to begin with. And then we got, like, the start of a W shape almost, or like this jagged mountaintop if it continues down. I don't know. This looks very weird, this part of it, especially how like the white part is kind of staying perfectly parallel to the gray part. It's almost like it's just like one line up, one line down. It's very strange. Usually when the momentum wave curves over, that's when the white crosses below the gray, and you kind of get that white part disappearing underneath the larger part of the momentum wave. So this looks weird. I can't really, give any analysis based off of this, other than the fact that, hey, it looks like we are possibly gonna print that bearish div. I mean, this is technically a bearish div momentum wave. If you click out, this is where price put in a higher high. So, if that clips off and we print a red dot and it confirms, then that is a bear div. We are also seeing money flow come out, and at this point, I mean, you could say that we definitely have a bear div with money flow, unless somehow it's able to, void that later with it coming back up above these highs. But yeah, I mean, market cipher overall, it looks like we still have some bearish signs on there. Money flow on a lot of time frames is still putting in lower highs. Like even on these time frames where it's locally looking kind of decent, we're still getting clear lower highs from back here. All right, well, this video has gone long enough, and I think that was everything I wanted to go over. So I'm going to call it here. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, leaving a comment. All of that helps to support my channel, and I really appreciate it. And I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.